Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sirius Report. My name is Ken Shorgen, and I want to welcome everybody today as we take a look at what has occurred in perhaps one of the most important conferences in the 21st century. And I don't say this with just bombastic, hyperbolic statements. I'm talking about where the world is now recognizing that the unipolar world is coming to an end, and that the multipolar world is going to be the future of geopolitical constructs. The 61st Munich Security Conference took place this weekend. And for those who have taken just a gander at some of the things that have come out of it, it is beyond recognition of what we thought the United States, what we thought Europe, what we thought the Western world was really all about. Primarily, J.D. Vance, for all intents and purposes, placed himself at the top of the list of who is going to be the replacement for Donald Trump when his term in office is over. And I don't mean this lightly, because he gave a speech during the conference that pretty much laid out that Europe is no longer a player in the world. And as a matter of fact, Europe does not have to worry about China, about Russia, about anyone else, because they are being destroyed from their own arrogance, their own policies, and their own, well, for all intents and purposes, desire to be a player in a world that no longer exists. Now, interestingly enough, the primary mission of the 61st Munich Security Conference was an analysis of the global security situation during the current international year and a focus on multipolarization of the world order. The report underlines that divisions are widening between countries commonly known as superpowers, which hinder common sense approaches to crises and global threats. And this is one of the most important things that Europe cannot get into their heads, is they are living in a Cold War, 20th century superpowers where they're stuck between two superpowers and trying to manipulate both to achieve a seat at the table for which they no longer are capable of doing. And we're seeing this from the Trump administration, where they are pretty much disconnecting themselves from NATO, from the EU, from many of the trade agreements, whether it's the WTO, whether it's NAFTA, primarily Canada and Mexico. They are disconnecting themselves from many of the globalist policies that have taken place since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. And they are coming out swinging without giving any notice that Europe is no longer to be a player. And we see this most often because also this week, President Trump had a call for about an hour and a half with Vladimir Putin. And the significance of this is it appears that they are going to, and this is just early scuttlebutt, they are going to get together in the near future in Saudi Arabia to have a discussion regarding what's going to be the future and the outlay of the Ukraine conflict, the SMO, or from the United States side, the proxy war. And then, of course, we're going to have the potential in May during Victory Day, which was Victory in Europe Day. It appears at this point that Vladimir Putin has invited President Trump, and Xi Jinping is going to be there as well. You will have the three biggest leaders of the world coming together in Moscow during a time when they defeated fascism and the world changed into, unfortunately, the outlay of globalism post-World War II. So all these things that are coming out of this security conference, this Munich Security Conference 2025, more than ever, is appearing to be something that is going to change the entire scope and focus of the globe itself. And polarization is at the forefront. One of the more interesting things that Paul and I discussed, not or outside of a podcast, but was the fact that while China, in their tariff war, the tit-for-tat tariff war with the United States, has decided to cut off rare earths from trade with the U.S., Russia does not have that same stricture. And that's the thing about multipolarity. You can be a member of the BRICS, of the ASEAN, of the SCO, and you have trade agreements and you have bilateral trade agreements with each other. That does not restrict you from then making your own separate agreements with another country, aka the United States. And coming out of the discussions, obviously the U.S. needs the rare earths and other minerals for their industry. They've talked about going into Greenland to see what to do with that. They've also talked about making a deal with Zelensky in Ukraine to get many of the minerals from there. They no longer have the capability of any of the minerals or rare earths that are in Afghanistan because of how that fell apart. But Russia may, especially when it comes to uranium, may be more than happy to make a deal with the U.S. if the U.S. gives up some of its concessions and allows Russia to fulfill most of the obligations and demands that they had going into the conflict, the SMO, with Ukraine. So what we're seeing here is, at this conference, both from the Vice President of the United States, from the Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, and what he said that NATO and the U.S. standing behind and being the policeman of the world is coming to an end. Many of the big players in the Trump administration are not being deceptive. It's not like a World Economic Forum where they're laying their plans for global domination. It is pretty much a determination from the Trump administration and his cabinet members that this is the end of the U.S. supplying the money, supplying the blood and sweat. Europe is going to have to deal with its own, and we are going to come about the world seeking peace at all costs and war as a secondary, if not tertiary thing, and that trade, globalism, or trade commerce on a global scale is going to be the way of the future. So I thought this was really fascinating. For those who have been paying attention to this conference, it has been a bombshell. J.D. Vance's speech pretty much told Europe that they are no longer relevant on the global stage. And it's something that is one of those where we had JFK go to Berlin and give his "I am a Berliner" speech. And I honestly think this speech by J.D. Vance, and when next time we talk with Paul, we can see what his thoughts are. But this speech by J.D. Vance is going to be on par in history with that. Anyway, it's just something to look forward to. Hopefully this week, Paul and I are going to talk about more of the outcomes regarding the Munich Security Conference. But until then, I just wanted to get something out and give you an idea of just how important this conference is, bearing to the mind that it's really ushering in the end of globalism. It's the end of or it's seeking to put an end to the post-World War II Bretton Woods globalization model and looking at multipolarization as the future, and the recognition by the Trump administration that this is the way the world is going. Anyway, as always, I want to thank everybody here at the Sirius Report for your continued support. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, send this out to anybody you think it might be important to. And until the next time we get together, have a great day.